Welcome to another episode of Life Distilled. We're here at the MicroShiner headquarters, and our guest today is my good friend Abhilash Chiramel. Abhilash, welcome to Life Distilled.
Thanks, Kobe. It's a pleasure to be here, and I've really been looking forward to be on your show. So thanks finally for having me over on your show.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So there's a bunch of things I want to talk with you about today, but because MicroShiner is about small batch lifestyle, there was a little unboxing I wanted to do and some products that I wanted to share. So bear with me while I share a couple things that I'm really excited about. So the first thing I wanted to show everybody is this new brand that I found called All American Khakis. I'll let you check these out. This is a give it an eyeball.
Wow.
This is a company in Thompson, Georgia, and they do everything, the design, manufacturing, shipping, customer service, all of it's in-house there in Georgia. And I can really speak to that because when I phoned these guys to order these things up, they, the guy that I emailed earlier was the guy that I talked to on the phone, and he was this good old boy from Georgia, and we had a nice conversation. And it was pretty cool. These are, they're high-end pants, and it's just neat because, khakis were like a thing that college guys after World War II, they brought back these khaki pants that they got in England during the war. And they started wearing them when they went to college, and it became this whole thing. And so then all these colleges in the Northeast and stuff, and it became the deal to wear these kind of slim-fitting khaki pants. And so everybody was making them in America, and it was kind of like a thing. And then we moved from these cool textile manufacturing plants up in New England making these things to, as you know, everything's just stacks of stuff mass-produced in box stores. And these guys are really kind of turning that back around. And so I was really excited about finding them. The ones that I got are the Cramerton, which is their standard offering. They got a whole bunch of different kinds of trousers. Those are twill khaki. And I just really love everything about the company. I think it's pretty cool.
Oh, wow. So actually, it's funny when you said that when I was growing up in India, actually, we were wearing khakis as a part of our school uniforms in the Jesuit school that we went to. So yeah, and that was a part of our standard uniform all the way from grade 4 to 10. So
well, I think khakis. I think there's some history with khaki and India with the English, with the British, anyways.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that all is, but they really were the ones that had started the whole khaki thing, and then, like I said, the GIs brought it back here to America, and it became kind of part of our dress and attire. The other thing I wanted to show everybody was kind of moving into your sphere a little bit, actually, just like the khakis. India obviously is a big player in the cotton trade and the garment trade both. And so these kind of tie back into that again because it's organic undergarments, organic cotton undergarments from Pact Organic. And so Pact is a company out of Boulder, Colorado, but they get their majority of their products, they source it all from India.
Oh, wow.
Now the upside of this stuff is that it's all fair trade certified cotton, no sweatshops, no child labor. They kind of are really diligent about their supply chain and what they got going on. And of course, then the organic cotton part, because the upside with that is, I think we need to move to organic cotton largely across the board. And that's going to be a huge deal because right now there's no capital in it, and moving all that capital, making that big shift, everything's going to cost more. And so it's just going to be really difficult to do, having to move all that capital from standard production, the way they're doing it now, to an organic production. It's going to take more land, take more resources. And so I usually do whatever it takes. Ever since Patagonia moved to organic cotton, I've pretty much only bought Patagonia clothes because they're one of the few companies you can buy organic clothes from. And so I was really excited when I came across this company, Pact, because getting undershirts and socks and underwear that was organic was nearly impossible. And now these guys are doing it, which is really cool. They're kind of a new company, so one thing I'll say about them is like the build quality isn't quite there, like with a Patagonia or even say those All American khakis. But I see it as an investment in the future.
Sure.
And so I'm willing to kind of take the hit a little bit on that while they get up to speed and get those processes dialed in.
No, I think that's great because I mean you're kind of initiating this building up this momentum or kind of seeding this the initial investments in something a product which is so organic and also I mean not only helps the American market but also a developing country like India. So I think that's actually a really great idea. So. And is this the only company now which is in the US that's doing this, or?
There's becoming more and more.
Okay.
I found another company, and now I'm not going to be able to remember what they're called, and maybe we'll talk about it next time we do the show, but they do blanks. So if you're making t-shirts for your school or you're doing your own private label t-shirt company, they're selling blanks for sweatshirts, t-shirts, a whole bunch of different styles. So it's becoming more and more. I don't know, Prana, and there's another one. A couple of the other outdoor companies are starting to do organic cotton across their lines. So it's growing. It's small yet. There's a long ways to go. I agree with what you're saying exactly, though. When my wife and I were looking at getting our most recent new vehicle, we really wanted to get a hybrid or an electric car because as much just because we wanted that kind of vehicle, we felt it was important that we start to invest and move capital into those technologies.
Absolutely.
Like if we don't start buying those things and we keep taking the cheaper, easier route to buy non-organic or non-electric, it's just going to be that much longer before those things get up to speed and the companies retool.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I agree. I think anyone who would care about the planet should do that, So get an organic or even get a hybrid or an electric car because that's the way forward. It's the only planet we have, so we should try and preserve it and be a bit more responsible. So I think that's great, actually. So
yeah. So that's a little something I wanted to share with everybody. It's always tried to bring on some products and kind of along with talking with the guests and having a cocktail, like to share some of the companies and forward thinkers that are out there that are actually trying to make a little bit of a difference. So those are two of them, All American Khakis and Packed Organic. Check them out. Speaking of, on to the next thing. I mean, this is Life Distilled. We better have a cocktail, right?
I'm looking forward to it, yeah.
All right. Well, let me, you can just stay right there. I'll set you up a little something there.
Okay.
So the first thing I wanted you to check out is this is the neat glass. And this is a special tasting glass. It's been engineered so that you can get into the real aromas of the spirit without burning your nose. Because when you just stick your nose over a glass, the alcohol vapors will actually kind of numb your nose a little bit so you can't smell as well. So this is a coffee liqueur from Montgomery Distillery. They only sell this in-house. I was up there last time and I picked up a bottle.
Sir.
So swirl that around and then just put your nose to the edge of the glass and take a whiff and just you can really get a nice smell of the product there.
Oh yeah, wow.
And then the other thing, I don't know if you're a fan or not, but it is the 20-year anniversary just this past week of the Big Lebowski coming out.
Oh really? I didn't know actually. Wow.
I wore my Big Lebowski sweater.
There you go.
And I thought we would have a couple of Caucasians in the dude's honor.
This is absolutely a great idea. I mean, I should have gotten my little robe actually, for this for this event. This is, I can smell some coffee in it, and also, wow.
So the true mixologists out there will make fun of my cocktail chops here, but we'll just kind of do our best with this thing.
I think you're doing a great job, Kobe.
Well, the portions are everything, ratios are everything with cocktail making, and I'm not a good cook that way. My wife is she works with the chemistry, and so she's our cocktail maker at our house because I just throw stuff together. And it works out as well as it works out. What did you think about that coffee liqueur?
Oh, I'm about to taste it. I was just waiting like for you to get your drink and then do we cheers?
Yeah, go right ahead. We'll do a little toast here once we.
You know what? Just before coming here, I was like, let's go get a coffee, or I just needed a cup of coffee, but I think this does it. You know, this is perfect. So this is... This is delicious. This is really good. Wow. So this is from Montgomery, you said?
It is Montgomery and Missoula, Montana.
Wow. Do I just drop the rest of it?
Oh, you could, sure. I think that's a great idea. So Montgomery, they have on their menu what they call the Dude Abides, which is their version of the Caucasian, which uses their in-house coffee liqueur, the Quicksilver vodka, and this is kind of a little riff on that. So cheers, Abhilash.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's really good. That is good.
Not everybody may enjoy the premise, but we really just thought that having conversation over cocktails is a great way of making a webcast and a podcast.
I think it keeps it organic, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's certainly a tipping point, because I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast one time where he had Shane Smith from Vice on, and they got hammered drunk on whiskey, and by the end it was getting a little ugly.
Did they break into a fight or
no? Just the conversation got a little
out of hand.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Abhilash, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where'd you come from? What do you do?
So I actually grew up in India, and I grew up. I was born in Bangalore, so it's the city in the south of India, and they call it the Silicon Valley of India, and it holds up to that name because it's an IT capital. I did my schooling there and also my undergrad. I did a bachelor's in biotechnology and genetics in India, and then from there I moved to Scotland for my master's. And there I already started specializing in virology, and from there I moved to Germany, to the University of Heidelberg to pursue a PhD. And I was focusing on dengue virus and hepatitis C viruses and how they exploit cells to set up to multiply, and then the natural progression from a PhD is to again further specialize as a postdoctoral fellow, and for that I moved to the US to the Rocky Mountain Labs, which is a part of the NIH. And there, I study how viruses actually try and get into cells, and how cells try to pick up that they're infected and combat these infections, and that's how I've ended up here in Hamilton. So yeah,
cool. Well, I was thrilled when I got to meet you. We're just really like-minded folks, and
absolutely,
it's such a boon to my life to have the folks that work at the lab in it, because otherwise life in Montana can get a little dull intellectually. And I tend to think of myself as an intellectual a little bit, so it's always great. It always surprises me, Hamilton being a town of 6,000 people. Our county has, I don't know, maybe 40,000 folks in it or something, probably less. But there's so many people with PhDs in Hamilton. It's one of the most dense places for PhDs per capita, I think, in the whole world.
No, I think that's absolutely correct, and actually the lab as such is really one of the a top class lab in the world, and there are only few places that can actually do what we do. I think it's a fantastic place to be, and you're in the middle of this beautiful nature, and so you can kind of almost be a hermit and just enjoy doing science. And I think that's been the best part for me, being in this place and in this lab for now almost 6 years. So yeah, absolutely agree with that.
There's a number of foreign nationals that work at the lab, and I was chatting with a gentleman that my wife had worked with, who was from Japan, and he was going back to Japan, and he's from a nice place, from Sapporo, and I said, "Are you a little sad to be leaving?" He's like, "There's no place like this in the world." where you can do world-class research in a rural setting like this. For some, I think they really don't like it. They'd rather be in Boston. And then others just never want to leave.
I mean, it's definitely a place where, you know, you can just stay really close to work if you choose to walk or bike or drive. But just the views that you get from work and can kind of also just take you away from in a thought process, and then come back to the bench and you know, you come up with these realizations, just kind of staring into these mountains and this beauty. I think it on its own somehow gives you these ideas that you wouldn't think of. It's absolutely a place where you're not distracted, you can focus, and you just have almost unlimited funding. So that's the best part of you know, the lab here in Hamilton. So absolutely, he's yeah.
How did you decide to dedicate your life to big questions? I mean, there's so many of us that are like, well, I'm just gonna fix cars. Or the things I do. I worked in fire management because it was something I knew about and it was right there in front of me. And here you decide, you know, no, actually I'm going to set off and I'm going to try to solve some big questions and find some answers. Like, how did you come to that?
I think that's a great question. And to be honest with you, I think it was actually, I stumbled upon it by accident. And something that, I mean, when I think about it now, and this might have passively somehow influenced my choices that I made later on as a career path. But when I was a kid, my mom is a physician, so she would take me and I would be kicking and yelling because I didn't want to go. I just wanted to play cricket with my buddies. But she would take me in her ambulance, and we would go to 3 different slums in Bangalore. So one was a Hindu slum, a Christian slum, and a Muslim slum. And my job was to just make small sachets of vitamin C and paracetamol and hand it out to people who would come to the ambulance. Back then, I didn't realize the effects that it actually brought on to me. But I think later on, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, because I didn't want to do medicine in terms of becoming a practicing doctor, but I definitely was very interested in science because I really liked science fiction, so Star Trek, and so I think somehow I just wanted to explore the unknown. And that's how I actually got interested in science. And I think it was really watching Star Trek and Star Wars, really got me into thinking about, oh, this would be great to, go into space and explore all these things that you don't know. And I really took to that saying, go where no man has gone before. So I think that was the seed that got me interested in science, yeah.
But rather outer space, you went inner space.
Yeah, and I think there's again a movie that's associated with it. When I just got into studying biology, a movie that I watched was 28 Days Later. It's this zombie apocalypse movie, and I mean, zombies are not real, and I don't think that we'll ever have a case of a zombie apocalypse. But I just found it fascinating that a virus could actually cause so much of destruction, and I started reading a bunch of different books on just epidemics, pandemics, and I think the one that really got me was spillover, and how these infections actually come to be, and how they can actually jump species, and just the different types of pathogens that interact with hosts, and all those just that concept I thought was fascinating, and I found viruses just fascinating. They're such small little things. Which can be manipulated with the advent of molecular biology, but also how they can interact with the host that they infect and manipulate them to actually pass on their genetic information. So, and that's for me was the most fascinating thing that I when I was in undergrad, and I said, for my master's, I want to go and get a master's in virology, and that's how it happened, actually. Yeah.
It's funny you bring up the zombies, because I remember one time we were having some drinks, and I don't know how we got it, and I said, yeah, something about zombies, and then you said, actually, rabies is so interesting because it's one of the few pathogens or what have you, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure you guys have a real name. I'll call it whatever I want. That actually affects the people's behavior.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it's like the closest analog to being a zombie.
That is absolutely true. I mean, rabies, I think, is a fascinating virus, and it's funny that you recall that conversation because I remember that now. Because once you get infected, it doesn't cause a problem till it actually reaches your brain. So if you get bitten on your extremities, so let's say on your leg, for at least you've got a good 7 days or more where the virus actually kind of hitchhikes on your nervous system and then reaches your brain. Once it reaches your brain, then it's pretty much game over because it's pretty much 100% lethal. But what it does make you, what happens to a person that is infected with rabies is that one of the symptoms that they present is hydrophobia, so they're scared of water, and the other thing is that they start frothing, and the titers of virus that you can actually get out of, the amount of virus that is produced in that froth is just a lot. And if you see a rabid dog, it basically goes and bites. So it does affect behavior, and I think it's a fascinating question to pursue to see how that actually happens.
Right.
But in all reality, rabies is not as big as HIV as a problem, or even dengue now, which is going to be a bigger problem. So money to actually study rabies and how it actually does this, and there's a nice rabies vaccine, so that kind of pretty much puts an end to how much money goes into that. But and in terms of basic science and supporting basic science, I think it's a fascinating question to answer as to how rabies actually can change behavior. Absolutely.
Yeah, it seems like it'd have a lot of implications to a lot of other things.
Yep.
You bring up an interesting thing about how that money gets directed and how some things are important and they're getting the funding, and there's other things that are very interesting but will not see any funding and just basic science research until there's a good reason or some of these other problems are solved. That's just it's a curious thing that I don't think the average person understands, that how important it is just to fund basic science, just to answer questions, whether there's a reason or not.
Yep.
And then also how things like Zika comes out. Well, suddenly all the money's going to Zika.
Yep.
And now a few things like Hep C are not seeing the funding that they might need, and those are serious problems as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, once they have a drug or a vaccine, it's pretty much done. So
even though there may be a lot of other things about that disease that might help us or benefit us in a different way.
Absolutely. And there are many examples to that, which I'm sure we'll talk about in this show. So yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So big changes for you. You come from this tropical country with a population density of 445 people per square kilometer. Maybe not Bangalore, but I'm sure it was dense. Then you went to Scotland, which I don't know what the numbers are there, and Germany, which is pretty dense in Germany. But then you're in the U.S., density of 35, temperate climate. Then you're in Montana, density of 3 people per square kilometer. What's that been like? And then, kind of the key part of the question is, you're kind of one of these foreign workers in the U.S. that we hear about on the news. Like how's that experience been? Are we living up to our land of opportunity billing here?
No, I think definitely leaving India. I mean, as I fall into this name tag called an expat. I think when I left India the first time, especially when I was in Scotland, I did get homesick. I missed food, or I missed hanging out with just folks and so on and so forth. But then I got busy doing what I was doing, but the most important thing is that I felt like I lost my identity as being an Indian, but at the same time I realized I somehow kind of became a part Scottish, a part German, a part American, because I was trying to be as inclusive as possible to really try and appreciate where people come from. That also kind of raised my whole identity as an Indian, and I think one of the experiences was even just meeting a Pakistani outside India was kind of mind-blowing, because you just kind of hear all these things in the news and you hate them, this, that and the other because of what has been fed, but when you meet them in real, face-to-face, they're actually pretty much similar to what you are and the likes, this, that and the other. But particularly talking about the US, I think it's a land of opportunity, and not just me, a lot of immigrants who come here, they come here for a reason, because one thing which no other country can do effectively as what the US does is to take risks.